everyone. What's the state of IT spending? I guess it depends what state you're in. You're watching TechStrong Gang. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. It's Alan Schimmel here, and we've got another great TechStrong Gang to spin up for you. As usual, we have 3 blocks of interesting stories, and we've got, let's just say, a very interesting crew, a gang crew here to talk about them. Let me quickly introduce you to our gang for this beautiful Wednesday. We've got Chris Blask, Kate Scarcella, Dan O'Brien, Dan O, Mitch Ashley, and of course the Dean Mike Vizard. Gang, welcome. I hope we're ready to dig right into it today. It's a busy Wednesday, and hey, these are the dog days of summer, but the news isn't slowing down. There's stuff flying all over the place. Studies of people getting ready for events. Of course, a lot of agents, secret agents, AI agents, whatever. Mike, talk to us. What do we got?
Well, let's start out today with a pair of reports that came out from the Futurum group. And one is talking about, and maybe not surprisingly, that, well, there's going to be a lot more spending on enterprise software thanks to AI. But the other one was a study of what CIOs are thinking. And a lot of them are kind of approaching this maybe with a more flexibility in their mind than I've seen in recent times. A lot of them are reconsidering or at least thinking about where they might deploy workloads, while also apparently trying to consolidate the number of platforms they have to manage to reduce costs. And of course, they have to find ways to fund AI. Dan, you, of course, are closely tied to a lot of these reports, but is this business as usual in your mind, or is the mindset of the CIOs starting to change or evolve in a new and interesting way?
I think it's a maturing for sure. Listen, all the priorities that have been there are still there, but we've added a lot of new priorities to the mix, and the reprioritization I think is happening, right? We see that in a lot of the data from the CIO study. A couple things that really stood out to me. Cloud strategy still there, right? But it's a maturing, right? It's not so much about will I or won't I. Everyone has. We all live in a hybrid world now. The shift has really kind of gone to, I've got all these workloads and I've got all these places to run them. How do I get the right fit, right? So we're really optimizing for workloads around the right mix of security, performance, and cost. Cybersecurity still a very top priority, as is talent. But you see other things kind of gaining in priority, like the network, right? We all know the network is the great bottleneck on AI. Interesting to see network shoot up in the prioritization in the latest survey. We continue to see, a big lean in on platforms. Obviously, the platform wars have been going on for some time now. What we really see in the CIO study is a simplification and a consolidation. You see vendors like Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Azure gaining, AWS, Cisco pulling back a little bit. But I think the number one thing that comes through is, AI is pervasive. It's everywhere. It is kind of driving everything. Lot of adoption in sales and marketing and ops, really driving productivity, customer experience. And I thought, the side of the maturity to me was, interestingly, the data privacy concern now being a bigger concern than anything around bias and hallucination, right?
So I think this is a very interesting, the very definition of choppy waters. Because here's the facts. I think CIOs, CISOs, C-level digital transformation leadership are being asked to do more with less or the same, right? And so what they're really doing is going through a huge reallocation exercise. And this bleeds into the B block we're going to talk about too. They're reallocating the mix of spend on humans to software, right? They don't necessarily have more net dollars, perhaps, but they got to they're reallocating those dollars. They're reallocating those dollars to security and network security, identity security, because these are where the market demands. But make no mistake, we're in a huge period of uncertainty. Though the market is at record levels, 50% or more of the market growth can be attributed to one company. One company accounts for 50% of our market growth, of the stock market. You want to talk about irrational exuberance. You know, and I think CIOs inherently feel this in their gut. They know they're making plans, but they're not built on, we're making big bets on agentic AI. We're making big bets on AI all around. At the same time, we had that McKinsey report that says 80% of all AI projects are failing. And so it's choppy waters out there, right? And Chris, I see you're rubbing your hands already.
He's ready to go.
Go ahead, man. Take it from there. Choppy waters. You're a sailor.
Fort Pierce Inlet, right? Sailing the Twains, my solar-powered, 1 or 2 knot boats south through Fort Pierce Inlet is a good example of this, right? Depending on the tides, you get this amazing laminar flow. Just imagine, say, 2 miles of water, several hundred feet wide and 30 feet deep, all moving without bumping a molecule. Everything's going that way. And you hit that transition and that choppy water, that choppy right before, right? It's a fascinating thing for people who geek out on those sort of things. But I was just going to bring up that, McKinsey report, right? We're exactly at this spot where on the one hand, and my thoughts on current AI offerings and what we're trying to, how we're off by 1,000 miles. And in the CIO level, the technical level, there's a lot of pushback and the projects aren't working at the same time as today's topics, not just this segment, the whole agenda today shows the business people are moving beyond that and saying, all right, the technical folks will figure this out. There's a lot of confusion, but if I'm planning one, much less 3, 5, 7 years ahead, I'm building this in, the budgets are there, and everybody's betting on the fact that it will work out. And for fascinating reasons, I think they're right. And I think a lot of things, the way we're using AI right now, by and large, is off by several degrees. And that's where, that's why I get excited, because that's where opportunity is. The money is right. The business is right. This is going that way. Those of us down in the technical field who are talking about the problems, we're right too, but this will all get fixed out, solved and worked out, and soon. It's happening now.
What's interesting is we're kind of only looking under the lamppost, right, where the light's shining, and that's the IT budget. Don Hinchcliffe, who leads this practice, CIO practice at Futurum Research, in talking with him about some of this data, one of the really interesting things was first time he's seen that the actual total IT spend outside of IT was crossover and was greater than the IT budget itself. So the complexity of what IT leaders, whether it's CISO, CIO, whatever it might be, CTO, is they're navigating what they're needing to do for the organization, both to equip it and prepare it for AI. But they're also doing it in a sea where, it's kind of all the waters are crossing at once, because they don't control what's happening necessarily, what's happening out in the business units or in marketing or in finance. Other people or HR that are also spending their money on AI, not only that, but also SaaS systems, application technologies, that kind of thing. So it's never been more complex for a CIO to both be part politician and relationship builder to execution, make things happen and prove you can deliver value.
I agree. And I think one of the other issues is, at the end of the day, from a CIO, CISO perspective, we've always have had issues, and I think this is where AI helps, is it's, looking at all these logs and everything else, and it does bleed into the next block. But we have had issues with bringing humans in to do something, to look at millions of events. And we have needed something more AI to give more accurate levels of alerts and I'm just talking from a cybersecurity point of view. We have needed this to have more intelligence with being able to review the logs and give events that when threat hunters are looking at these events, they're not coming up with a bunch of false positives. So I think what this article highlights, and something that I often talk about, is the Industry 5.0, right? This augmentation for humans is really needed. The only thing that I get concerned about with AI and where we're going happens when I just have to bring cloud in, because I sometimes think cloud has been one of these, like these cells of, let's put everything into cloud and it's going to be free. And now all of a sudden, companies are being charged so much. That's the only thing I get worried with AI. Like, are we going so fast that it's going to come back and bite us? Sort of like the cloud. And it's not that cloud hasn't been great and promising. It's been really expensive, right? And that's why you see on-prem. And that's what I wonder with AI. Since AI is not, we don't have a really good road in on how it's going to be playing out. So are we putting a lot of our apples into this one basket, and then it's going to come back and bite us and be really expensive?
Hey, if I can, right? So I was thinking about this in this whole episode today, like block to block. It's all the different aspects of the same things. But Quietware, over the weekend, we put together a small business solution for manufacturing, and it's really more of an exercise of principles and so forth. We are actually going to sell it. I think we can probably do quite well doing it. But on so many levels, it didn't take very long to put together whatsoever. It's up and running now. We're weeks ahead of the conservative schedule we put together a week ago already. And it's to your point, Kate, the actual AI parts of it, there'll be as a civic AI, there'll be a teammate, the first customer, we know who they are, they'll pick a name and it'll be on board, it'll do things in the system. It's not going to be Claude or ChatGPT. It doesn't need to do a lot of stuff. It needs to understand the semantics of the business, which aren't complicated, and be able to consume human readable things in certain ways and make sure everything's attested to the point internally on a small server, can use cloud access, doesn't need it. As long as power is up in the facility, everything's running just fine. And be able to produce, human readable text, for the human teammates in the company. And that's where it's going, right? So the big, huge cloud AI absolutely has its place, but we don't really need, ultimately, globally, we don't need 10 massive data servers. We will have tens of millions of small nodes.
Dan, there's two things in the survey and the CIO thing that give me cause for pause. First is, I read it and I went, wow, return to sanity. CIOs are evaluating workloads and fit for purpose, and we're going to run them on the right platform. But then I remembered, CIOs tend to be autocratic. And so are they just going to try to push everything onto a couple of platforms and make everybody conform? Or are they going to be, a little more flexible maybe this time out? And can we find a happy middle?
I don't think they can be autocratic. What I was saying about the budget, people can spend their own money. Shadow IT is no longer in the shadows, right? It's all IT. So they have to craft strategies. And that's one of the things about platforms. Platforms are different than just a collection or a suite of products. And it isn't just about integrating a vendor's own products into quote unquote a platform. Any platform not only has to support their products, but they have to have very strong integration capabilities, because there are other tools. The smart vendors recognize they don't get to own everything anymore, just like the smart CIOs recognize that. But they also have to offer some kind of a data fabric so that data can be shared across those tools, across those products, not just within itself, but also to others to other products. And when you layer on AI, that's the grease to the skids. That's the ability for agents to actually do work across what we would think of as silos today, whether they be work silos or data silos. So platforms mean something different than just a nice brochure of 5 products instead of 5 individual brochures.
But that's an argument to allow CIOs to be more autocratic. You can't go out here freewheeling and freestyling. It's got to fit on the company-wide platform.
No, I don't think it is.
In Mike's article. Oh, sorry, Alan, go ahead.
Oh, no, I would, Kate, to your point about the cloud, look, I was here. I think we all were here when the cloud first came on board. I think the whole myth of the cloud being a money saver was just that, a myth.
Yeah.
Right? The cloud
seen
is scalable, it's burstable, it's maybe more efficient. It takes a lot of the nuts and bolts of running the infrastructure out off your plate, but it's not necessarily cheaper. There was always a point. I remember being out in Boulder talking to Rally Software. Mitch, you remember Rally?
Ryan.
They wrote the book on Agile, and they already had a study, and this was in 2010. They had a study of at what level of usage are you better off going back private off cloud, right? Because the cloud just becomes much more expensive. I think we are going to see that at AI too. But I also want to call out, Dion did great work in that CIO survey, but there's another Futurum survey out on enterprise software market. It grew to $340-some billion, but forecast to go to about $600 billion. Dan, is it in a year or two? Is $600 billion?
It's a little farther out there. Yeah.
We'll further up.
You know, and forgive me, is this a Keith Kirkpatrick
Correct. Yeah. Keith's the
survey?
author.
So let's give Keith a shout out on that. Personally, I don't know. I think if it does grow that way, it's not net new budget being added to the mix. It's coming from somewhere else. And again, that's what I want to kind of end my piece on this segment on, which is, are we taking from Peter are we robbing Peter to pay Paul with a lot of, moving around dollars, but not necessarily.
That's what we always do, Alan, right? Like, I mean, I think what we're generally seeing in the study is we're going to let the innovation run, and the innovation is no longer cloud. The innovation is AI, and we're going to clean up kind of what's matured and played out, right? I mean, to your point, I think that the challenge with cloud was, it was the answer to every question. And, it's just not the case, right? It's really good for some stuff, but it's, not necessarily what you need for others. And, I think we're going to probably repeat a lot of the same pattern with AI. We're throwing AI in everything, but AI may not be the answer to everything. And, that will mature over time. We'll kind of see where there's clear ROI for it. And then, we'll probably unwind some of what we've done. It feels like history repeats itself, and we're just in a new pattern, a new cycle. Sorry, same pattern, new cycle.
So I'm going to leave this segment with this because I'm going to claim last word. Satya Nadella says, we're no longer a software factory. We are intelligence engines. That's the big thing. You're watching Textron Gang. We're going to come back and talk about service as software. We'll be right back.
Discover TechStrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with TechStrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back, and yes, our guests have picked up on that. There is a continuing theme here, and the next thing we're going to talk about is, what is happening with IT services? Historically, I think there's been reports that it's estimated that for every $2 spent on software, there's $9 to $10 spent on services. And that's a little bit crazy when you do the math and you start thinking about it. And we have CIOs that are trying to figure out, how do I kind of rebalance this budget? And a good place to look is maybe how much we're spending on services. Alan has a piece on Digital CXO talking about this very issue. Alan, is there hope here? Is this something we're going to see happening? And what will be the impact on all those IT services firms that are counting on this revenue?
So first of all, I got to give credit to where this came from, right? I picked this up on LinkedIn. There was some articles from our friend Chris Hoff, and how many of you know Mitch? I know you know Chris. I don't know how Chris. I mean, Chris Hoff has been one of the leading lights in security for 25 years. When security blogging first got off, Chris was one of the leaders of it. He's a good friend of ours then. Not that he's not a good friend now, but he doesn't blog anymore. He mostly does LinkedIn. He runs security at LastPass. He used to run security at Bank of America and some other places. Brilliant guy. Him and a former VP Corp Dev, now he's a venture capitalist board member kind of guy, and I'm blanking on his name. I apologize. It's in my article.
Tueri.
Yep. So originally, Tueri wrote an article that said much what you said, Mike. The soft white underbelly, the dirty dark secret of all of these software and software as a service is that they're really services, right? And it was primarily talking about SOC, running SOCs. You still need the SOC, no matter how much software you buy for your SOC. It's still the SOC guy who's sitting there running it and doing it. And that what we're going to see with AI is shifting to what he called service of software, replacing the service element with software, with agentic AI. Hoff took umbrage with this and said, SOC people are snowflakes. And they're each individual and they can't be replaced with software. I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think a lot of what they do will eventually be replaced by software. But it goes back to what we just spoke about. Are we just going to reallocate what we spent on people on software? And I don't want to be a doubting Thomas. And Mitchell, I know you're a big fan of agentic AI, but boys and girls, show me the money. Show me the money. Agentic AI has not shown, and I'm sitting here telling you this, you want to throw stones at me, throw stones. But as we sit here today, agentic AI has not shown that it's scalable, doable, and let's start throwing people out the window because it's going to take their place. Not happening. It's great for science experiments. Go ahead, Mitch.
My counter is neither did the cloud at the beginning. So yeah, I mean, we're overhyping it. And so of course we have unrealistic expectations about AI and agentic. I think if you go back to theory of constraints, which we all love from DevOps and software development, when you take a constraint and you either remove it or you drastically reduce its impact, that's when systems change and when they start to change. But you have this evolutionary period where you still do things like you used to do them. You just use the new technology to do it a little better, a little faster. And we've been on this treadmill now of automation, right? Productivity improvements. How many more messages? How many more SOC issues? How many more issues can I run down in an IT organization, whatever it might be, or claims I need to process? The thing about AI, what it removes a constraint is you don't have to have someone touch it all the time. We'll get more and more to this place. We're not there yet, but we'll get there. Is it's able to deal with some things in real time that a human would have to deal with, but it can do it at a larger scale. And once we kind of tip over that part of the curve, that's, I think, when we'll see jobs change. We'll see things, it's redefinition of managing agents instead of managing messages, managing issues. Things like that will change in the work. But, we're not there yet. It's not happening. And of course, Tueri he's a venture capital investment guy. He's talking about all the companies that have been invested in that are early startup stages. So that isn't real yet, right? Those are early companies. They'll come along. But that's what he's got to promote that, what he's investing in.
I mean, I would agree to Alan's point that AI companies are parsing the word is in a Clintonian fashion, and we're a long way from these AI agents actually doing any of this stuff just yet.
So Alan, again, I'm not going to litigate the current state. From a financial investor, you're right. It's a particular dog's breakfast. But Mitch, you're exactly right as well. We're at one of these stages where we, if in fact this is a serious, transition, and it is, then we should expect that what everybody's doing right now is intrinsically wrong, right? It's right bits, but it's a mess. It's not efficient. They're not hitting goals. But I can go back to the actual topic of this, services as software, and that manufacturing case study referenced in the last segment. That's literally it. We're replacing all of the software in a small business with just the service. And the software is delivered intrinsically and to the point, agentically, parts of it. There's enough cognitive capabilities in a tiny little LLM, properly done in an environment like that, that you don't need to go out and buy the new stupid software, and you shouldn't have to know about, software product brand name version because you're a bloody manufacturing company. And we've been promising that for decades, but we're literally doing this right now. And I think that, if, as I say, this isn't our core line, but it's a exercise. It should be profitable. It should, do some good in the world. But as I look at our list today, that's one of the things. I would like the CEO of this tiny little company to stop being able to tell me the version numbers of the software he uses. It should just be a service, and the software itself will be delivered and designed by us in real time to fit the needs.
Chris, I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but when I wrote about service to software here, service is code for humans, right? We're replacing humans with software.
Yes, I'm on the fence on that one. I have the same concerns as everyone else, but when I, as a company, as Quietwire, we will have humans running this. There are humans. We have jobs, already specced out, and candidates will hire
that's exactly Hop's point, that you're going to need humans running it. Look, this is why I think the CIOs are facing these complex challenges, because in the pit of their stomach, they're making a bet on something that is as yet unproven totally. Dan, we're announced today, Futurum Signal is live, and we made a bet. My article will be up. It's up. You could read it, right? When you look at where I've been on a few Signal calls now, and one of the things vendors, because it's been mostly with vendors, not end users, ask is, well, how are you gathering the data? Where's this data coming from? And when you look at where the data from Signal comes from, it's basically, I call it a third, and a third. 1/3 is we have this exclusive deal with G2, who has millions of people who are voting with their fingers and giving valuable feedback. And we have the exclusive feed from that data that we're then grabbing and again, using AI, putting that into the mix of the signal, if you will. That helps calibrate the signal. 1/3 comes from the exclusive opinions, research, and analysis of the Futurum analyst. Again, not necessarily AI, but it's the Futurum analyst. This is their opinions, this is their research. 1/3, and then when I say a third, it's not exactly a third, and a third, but close enough. 1/3 comes from agentic AI combing the public domain and grabbing all available information on that given topic, right? And adding that on top of these two exclusive feeds. So you got 3 pieces of the pie. Maybe they're not the same size, 1/3, but there's 3 pieces of the pie. Dan, we're betting that the agentic AI does a great job on that, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think we've seen it already in, the results that we've seen internally, excited to reveal those to the rest of the world tomorrow. I mean, just to jump back and ground us here, the phrase...
Dan, remember, we taped this the day before. We've revealed it to the world. Go ahead.
Certain software, and credit to Phil Firsch, who I believe coined the term, he was really talking about in the context of IT services and IT consulting and taking these, very repeatable patterns of behavior and codifying them in code and kind of, replacing the human labor with it. And, I'm glad you used the Signal example, Alan, because, we've done exactly that. Brad Shimon, who, had a lot of input as the lead analyst on our first Signal, he has created research analysts and research directors, agents who are playing those roles. I mean, historically, when other firms would go about this, there would be some junior analyst who would do all the data gathering and all the synthesizing. And, we are using AI to do that today. We have created AI agents who go out and comb through all of a vendor's product documentation and their case studies and everything that's available publicly that would be available to a prospective buyer. And as you've said, we've obviously layered on, some really proprietary intelligence that is not out there, through both G2 as well as Futurum's intelligence platform and everything we're collecting. But I think it's actually a perfect example of services as software. The role that a junior research analyst would have played in a lot of the data gathering is being done agentically. And, we still have that human in the loop, that market expert who can comb through this and really make sure that it's credible, that it all stacks up. And, really where we've done is we've shifted, and we talk about this a lot with AI, right? Moving the human to higher value work, not replacing them. Brad is able to focus on all of the, his opinion on the go forward prediction side of things versus spending days and weeks and months gathering and synthesizing information, right? So it's actually a perfect example of this, in that there are probably a couple junior analyst roles that exist at a different analyst firm as they go through this process that we have done away with. We have started, from a place where we don't need that at all. And we have shifted the human in the loop to that higher value work, which is much more predictive, context aware, versus spending a lot of time summarizing the history.
And by the way, but let me hear me out. By the way, that was exactly Hoff's point. That the SOC analyst, part of what the best of the SOC analysts intuitively are able to look at that data screen and see something, see a threat, see an attack, see something that the software may not necessarily pick up. But and that's the point. Where do we draw the line between what an AI could do versus truly what the human needs? Chris, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please. And that was an interesting riff on this, because I was going to take this, and I am going to take this in a slightly different direction. And I'm glad, Dan, you went down that path, because in the IT space, where we're all focusing into the big data centers and there's going to be shifting around. Will there be more or less jobs? Fantastic, interesting conversation. We don't know. But Donna, my wife, on our marriage certificate, I'm listed as a forklift driver, and she's a word processor, which was a role. Whole floors of word processors in the 80s, and they were humans. They had lunch, right? Now they're an app. But I look at it, using the case I was mentioning earlier for the services replacing software, because in these small companies, they have no services. There may be an IT person who comes in sometimes, the owner's brother-in-law or whatnot, and that's it. But what they spend on IT is licensing on software. And in the case we're looking at, and related in small, medium manufacturing, we're not paying any, there isn't any licensed software. Now, the CAD software, I'm not ready as QuietWire to replace that just yet, but yeah, and that can all be generated in open source too. So millions and millions and millions of these, tens of millions of small companies are spending all their IT spend on software licenses and subscriptions and whatnot. And a lot of that's going to get replaced with software, with services as software. The software delivered into the company 7/24 will be the service, and they won't know what brand it is, but just their partner.
This is all lovely, beautiful picture. The reality is the following. We have spent an inordinate amount of money, first on IT services to compensate for the fact that the software is too damn hard to implement. And then the second thing is we have so many other people who are doing manual labor and nonsense tasks all day because the software is too damn hard to use. So now you're telling me that the very people who made this problem in the first place are going to show up with a bunch of agents to solve this. Well, that kind of sounds like Bullwinkle this time for sure. So I'm kind of dubious of the whole thing, to be honest, and we'll see how it plays out.
Well, you should be dubious, but again, you made a lot of specific assertions, right? And maybe you're right. I don't think so. I think this time it actually is true. So we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. It's always in the middle, right?
And do you believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy? It's okay.
I do.
I do.
You do, Kate.
Because I want to believe.
I want to believe. Hey, we're going to take a break. We ran a little over. Let's come back and talk about fusion confusion. Oh boy. You're watching TechStrong, gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
And we're back and continuing our theme here on what amounts to essentially re-engineering, but Microsoft is now out talking about, well, Fusion. And it's as much an idea as it is a piece of software, but the core idea is that somehow or other, all the end users and all the professional developers are going to link arms and have a kumbaya moment, and we're all going to develop software together happily ever after. You can tell by my tone that I might be a little bit dubious about this too. Mitch, though, what's your take on what's going to happen here and how all this is going to play out?
Well, first we need to check if somebody put something in your Wheaties this morning, kind of got you agitated. So what this is about, Microsoft uses the word fusion, and not as some new kind of food, kind of combining this with that, but actually people working together, bringing together non-technical people with developers or citizen developers with professional developers. And they're starting to change the use of that term to more full stack. And what they mean by that is not the traditional full stack that we think of as the software developers build around, but the idea of coding was something was really difficult to get a non-technical person to be able to do. So you use some tools that help automate some of that for you. Now you can vibe code things, and what it's changing is using AI. You can use AI to help prototype ideas. So now the expectation is becoming a product manager could use Cursor or Visual Studio with whatever whatever LLM in the background as actually a way of prototyping or demonstrating some ideas of what they're thinking about. It's no longer just a requirements document or a PRD that they have to put together. Matter of fact, I don't know if this is true, I heard one person say that that's part of their interview process, is if you're going to interview here in a product role, you need to pick an app, pick a tool, and go vibe code it and show me. I'm not looking to deploy what you put together in production. I'm looking how you can express your ideas through leveraging AI tools, which goes back to my point about AI isn't going to take your job. It's somebody that knows how to use AI better than you do. They'll take your job. So that's this idea around kind of full stack, moving from Fusion, blurring the lines a little bit, but I think it's more about using tools to try to express things closer to the end product that we're trying to build.
And I actually think it's needed. Oh, sorry, Chris. At the end of the day, trying to get the dev people speaking with, the ones who are trying to make the app, and let's just add cybersecurity in there. It's been a mess, and it's been a mess for years. I mean, this is, I hope, oh yes, I do believe in Santa Claus. I really hope that's going to happen because it's so needed. It really is needed.
Well, so's the United Nations. That doesn't mean it's successful.
Right.
There's almost
you and Mike.
Because here's what the Grinch is thinking. The Grinch is thinking that this is, low code, no code on steroids. One more time, we called it vibe coding. We're going to dress it up with a bunch of end users creating software that is, once again, maybe not very scalable, certainly insecure, and
too hard to use.
Right, ugly, and we're going to dump this on a bunch of professional developers and tell them to go fix it. And we don't have enough of those people, so maybe we're going to hope that AI agents will help them fix all the software the end users are creating. This doesn't sound good to me.
In 35 years working in technology, there has been almost no technology involved in my career whatsoever. Such a tiny amount of it. What's been important all along is the teams and the people and the ideas, right? And the technology just gets in the way. And this is what makes, folks like you, Mike, cynical, because you've seen it over and over again. But it's the same as, this is a very short period of time. Because we've seen something before doesn't mean it's inevitable. It means it is a coherent pattern that can be expected to pop up again. And it may, in fact, be the only pattern, but let's be clear, human history, as we talk about it, is 200 generations. This whole topic we're talking about is 3. And most of us, on this show, at least, me and anybody older, has been alive for at least 2 of them, right? So we've only gone through a couple cycles so far, and we keep repeating the same mistakes. But and Mitch, you say I'm usually in the middle. This one, to be clear, I'm not in the middle. I have picked a side. I am so enthusiastic about it. I spend all of my time around folks like Mike trying to prove me wrong, and I don't think I am. I think we will actually close the loop effectively speaking this time around, so that we actually have teams of people making solutions instead of, competing teams of people who hate each other on the same side trying to get budget so that they can not get fired.
Well, convincing Mike is more like tilting at windmills. I think it was the old phrase. But you keep trying. You keep going.
You don't try to convince Mike or Fred Cohen. You just try to, rebut enough of their arguments that you might not be wrong. That's all I'm looking for.
But what for the skeptics? We wouldn't have to prove anything.
Mike, I'll be your poncho to Don Quixote anytime with the windmills.
It warms my heart that my grandchildren are going to enjoy the fruits of your efforts, because that's how many generations.
Well, honestly, we talk about that a lot, but seriously, look, we're thought leaders in this big global thing. I have plenty of plans I know I'm not going to live to see, but we got to be able to plan past the horizon. Plan to tree you won't live to see it, particularly at our age.
Well, thank you for that optimistic look, Chris. You call him the Grim Reaper. Anyway.
Well, to be happy now. That's the reason, right?
But let me bring up one thing about AI. It comes out here, and it shows itself in our other blocks today, too. The thing about AI is it as an umpire, it calls them as it sees them, right? It can't be, theoretically, it can't be bought, bribed, paid for. You know what? You give it 2 candidates who wrote code, it's going to pick out the one who wrote the best code, right? Regardless of whether that candidate's sexual preference, sex, race, whatever it is. With in the instant case of Signal, Dan, that we spoke about, I don't care how nice you are to the analyst. The research is what the research shows, right? You sucking up to an analyst or flying them out for a nice lunch or dinner isn't going to help it. In terms of being a developer, what it develops is what it develops, no matter whether you're, some developers take a lot of time off. Some developers are great teammates. Some aren't. Some are solos. It is an impartial, just even, right? There's no plays on that. Yeah, exactly. And
I'm not sure I'm buying that either, because I can tweak that LLM on any prompt that I want to have it come back with whatever I need it to say.
I'm getting you a tinfoil hat for the next show. I'm here to
tell you that is detectable as hell. Go ahead. We watch these, certain billionaires try to get their LLMs to, say the sky is green and the LLM acts weird. And I'm here to tell you that's a technical thing. You can make an LLM lie, but it'll look like a liar. It'll sound like a liar to other LLMs and people.
Have you seen Washington lately? Because, everything kind of looks. So what's the news?
So wouldn't it be nice to have some AI agents there?
Well,
let's be cynical about this. I know we've said, this sounds like a lot of what we've heard before, and it's just a new effort on it. But I think it is a lot like we've heard before, because ultimately you're trying to bring together two groups of people who really meet each other. You've got a group of people who are trying to build solutions to help with people who really deeply understand those problems. And, I think this is obviously just another attempt to try to eliminate that friction so that the people who understand the problems can help the solution builders build a solution that really, really works for the user.
All right. I see from Dylan's lips to God's ears. That's what I say.
Kate, what do you say?
Well, and needs to be secure at the same time, right, Dan?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I see benefits down this path.
Start winning, so Michael will be a little more.
Yeah, that's what it'll take. But no, guys, seriously, Kate, to your point, when we start including security people as the builders, right, we'll start having more security in what we build. And that's something that needs to be addressed too, but that'll be for another show. Gang, what a great gang we had today. I appreciate you all. I appreciate the comments, the opinions, the thoughts. Mike, thank you as always for putting together our blocks for today. We will be back tomorrow with yet another gang as usual. Who knows what we'll talk about then? You'll have to stay tuned. By the way, you can catch the gang. If you just want to catch individual blocks, they're available on our TechStrong TV YouTube channel. You could also watch on TechStrong TV OTT if you are onto Apple TV or Roku or Amazon Fire or iOS or Google Play. It's all available there. And of course, on TechStrong.tv itself, or you might be watching this on our TechStrong TV network when we stream it every day at 9:30 on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, and all of our TechStrong sites. So lots of places to catch this, as well as TechStrong TV following it. We did release Signal today, so go check out all the news around Futurum Signal. Interesting stuff there, some good AI stuff. Chris is doing stuff with Quiet AI. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. But we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, this is Alan Schimmel on behalf of the gang. Have a great day, everyone. We're out.